All right, we've looked at inland schools. Let's now look at the readiness of coastal schools for the start of the school year. Previously, we've seen coastal schools open a week after inland schools, but this year they will open at the same time. This is also due to public holidays, the upcoming general elections as well, and also, the department talking about trying to ease traffic congestion in some of the areas as well. But let's look at this deeper now. We speak to Bronagh Hammond, Western Cape Education Department spokesperson. And we'll also be joined by Muzi, Mahlambi, KZN Education Department spokesperson. Let me thank you both for your time. Let's start with you, Bronagh. Is it all systems go?
Yes, it certainly is. It is all systems go. And tomorrow we'll be ready to welcome approximately 1.2 million learners here in the Western Cape. Our teachers are back. They're they're ready. They're looking at their timetables and preparing their class plans. And of course, we had all the delivery of textbooks and furniture and equipment at the end of the last year. So we are prepared and ready.
And when it comes then to the learners that have not been placed as well, where do you place the number? How far are you there?
Yes, well, the latest number we had was on last Friday, and that was 2,600 learners. We had a number of learners that came in during the December holidays, and obviously with schools closed, it's difficult to negotiate and discuss with schools possible placements. But now that schools are open again, we are able to continue those discussions and also, of course, very importantly, look at the data that will be made available to us after the 10th school day, which will advise us, where there is placement options may be available in schools. But yes, we certainly are concerned about the placement issues. We had a 700 million rand budget cuts this past year, which affected our infrastructure budget, reducing the number of schools that we are going to build by 21 to 10. So this was a big concern for us, and obviously we're just doing everything we can to ensure that we place those learners as soon as possible. There are mostly late applications that we received now in December and January, so it is tough to know in advance where these learners are going to be placed, where the demands are. And, that's the issues that we're dealing with now.
I'm going to get to that in just a moment, but let's go to KwaZulu-Natal now. Muzi, thank you so much for your time. Is it all systems go, especially in your province? I mean, we think about the weather that has been making things a bit difficult as well. How are things looking?
We are generally happy with the preparations for opening of schools tomorrow. From what we gather, as from Monday, when the teachers and the school management were at the schools, there is nothing major to write home about, except that we are worried about the warning in terms of weather levels, and the weekend rains indicated that it can be devastating with the warning level 2. We wonder what will happen with the level 5s that we have for this evening and tomorrow. But with the storm damaged schools, which were standing at 59 before the weekend weather, we did send mobile classrooms to all those schools. Like Western Cape, when we closed, our stationery was delivered. Our school nutrition service providers are ready. Food was delivered to schools over the weekend, and today was the last day for such. And with those major programs being in place, we can measure ourselves to be set to be ready.
All right. The IFP, though, and I'm borrowing from some of what they said that the MEC, in other issues, has failed to address critical staff shortages. There's also been vacancies for principals, teachers, and some departmental staff that have not been employed, and this is making the work of the department very difficult in the province. Is it true? And if yes, why?
They are updated with their information that they are using as the source, because as from yesterday, principals of schools, deputy principals, and departmental heads assumed their duties, those that were supposed to be appointed, because we had advertised thousands and thousands of those posts last year. and the processes were finished just before we closed. Then we said, let's hold on releasing the letters, but letters were released as over the weekend, as from Monday, they assumed duties.
All right. And Bronagh, let's then come back to you, because one of the issues, as you know, we've just talked about, is the issue around the budget cuts, the issue around where, you know, some of the pupils will then be placed if you're now building lesser schools. But then others can ask the question to say that why then does all the data that is being collected, you know, tomorrow supposed to be aiding you, only being collected now? Couldn't this have been foreseen in order to try and see where you can create some of the spaces for the learners who are moving possibly? Because this is not a new problem that you have to deal with as a province.
No, no, totally, I agree. You know, we do have, you know, data that we get to predict, you know, where learners could reside, and we know where there is demand. We know exactly where those areas are, and that's why we were going to conduct our most ambitious school build program yet. You know, we had a very successful trial of our rapid school build program, where we're building schools within 60 days of, you know, from construction to end, obviously with the planning in advance. And, you know, that is what we wanted to build on this year. And that's why we announced such an ambitious plan in March this year, that we would build 21 new schools. Unfortunately, in June, we were told by National Treasury that we needed to, you know, watch our spending, because we weren't sure what our budget cuts would be. And that was only announced in November. We couldn't obviously go ahead with construction of schools because we didn't know how much those budget cuts would be, and we didn't know if we could pay the contractors of those schools. So unfortunately, in November, when we got our budget, which was a 700 million budget cut, which also, you know, we have to freeze public servant posts. It doesn't affect us teachers and our principals and school-based educators, thank goodness, but it does affect our department. You know, we can't employ it, or our posts are frozen, and in addition to that, it affects our infrastructure budget. So we really were then sitting in November, this past, you know, with 2 months to go before the opening of schools, the issue of, okay, now we can only build 10 schools. We have conducted a rapid school build, and it is underway at the moment. We've just finished 3 new junior high schools. You know, one was completed in 55 days, which is one of our records. And, you know, we really are eager and keen. The plans were all there, but unfortunately those cuts, you know, for the wage bill increase came, you know, in our way. And it is unfortunate and devastating for us. But obviously, you know, we've got dedicated officials that are working hard to ensure that all learners are placed. But then again, you know, while we can predict where there will be demand, there is always that uncertainty, and there is always those late applications that come in, and we can't sometimes predict it. We've had circumstances where a new community pops up over the December, January holidays, you know, legal occupants in some certain areas, and then they demand a school. So it really can be difficult and challenging for officials, but we are working around the clock to solve this crisis.
Before I move back to Muzi, it sounds like you have a crisis on your hands, though.
Well, okay, I didn't say crisis, but to us, because just one child out of a school is critical for us, you know, and that's what we are looking at. We are ensuring that every single child gets a place in the school. But, you know, if a child pitches up today, as did some children pitch up today at our offices, and despite, you know, a massive campaign and very good media coverage on the fact that you must apply for this school year early. And we do that process very well in advance. It actually is done during March and April of the previous year. But now you get a child that pitches up with a parent outside our offices and say, we need a place. You know, it is a challenge for us, because you need to look at where we can place that child. Does it suit their language needs, you know, where they live, you know, what grade offerings that they might be taking if they're in grade 10, for example. So it's quite a challenge for us. And, you know, as a school doesn't pop up overnight, although we've rapidly increased, you know, and accelerated that process, you know, there is still planning involved. And that was where, you know, we got bitten last year, is that we were planning for those 21 schools. And unfortunately, only 10 can be delivered. All
right, let's move back to KwaZulu-Natal. I do understand Muzi is now back. Muzi, Umalus is saying that it's deeply concerned about group copying involving 945 matriculants, mainly from KwaZulu-Natal and Mpumalanga. I wonder, how concerned are you about this as a department?
Yeah, it's just one day after Lucy delivered that media briefing and stated what they had stated. The basic education has not met to consume further this matter and comment on it. I will want to give the National Department a space to comment on this issue.
All right, but I'm sure as a province you are concerned.
Obviously, we are concerned, and it's a matter that the head of department, together with the DG, are working on.
All right, and let's talk about something that you mentioned as well, which is the school feeding scheme, and we've seen some problems in that regard last year as well. How do parents trust that everything will be above board this year?
It's now history that we had a problem last year, and the service providers that are providing this year are in a 3-year contract. They are getting into their 2nd year, and we are happy with the manner in which things turned up after we had that glitches at the beginning. But for the last 8 months, we were happy with the services that they provided to our learners.
All right. And Muzi, do you think, though, that, especially with the rains and the infrastructure, there are some who are concerned? I know that you say that there's a lot of work that is being done right now to make sure that the schooling year starts off very smoothly. But would you say that tomorrow you're expecting level 5? Will the infrastructure be able to withstand some of that? Because that is a major concern for some of the parents as they're looking to send their children back to school.
With the level of warning that have been issued, we can only pray and hope that no damages will occur, and we'll be able to continue with our schooling. Because even the level 2 warning over the weekend, but the devastation was more than level 2. And you will find in some places where schools have not been damaged, but roads leading to the schools are inaccessible. So that will then cause some problems for some of our schools.
And then I'm going to ask you a final question to both of you as we wrap up our conversation. Muzi, there's something that the RTMC has said. It's urging scholar transport operators to prioritize roadworthiness of their vehicles before schools reopen. And I wonder, how concerned are you as the province of KwaZulu-Natal in this particular regard, to say that, sometimes we do see vehicles that are not roadworthy that are transporting kids to school?
We will urge them to continue to deliver the services the manner in which they have done over the years. We have not had any problems, and our road inspectors are very strict, and they are always on the road inspecting them. And last year, we did not have a report of any wrongdoing from our service providers in that regard.
All right, and Bronagh?
Yes, for us, well, there's obviously the two. There's the one that's the learner transport scheme, which is done by the department. There's obviously strict monitoring and compliance that's there. But the concern is the actual scholar transport, which is the use of private vehicles by parents. That we are concerned about, and the Department of Mobility here in the Western Cape is actually going to be doing, some monitoring tomorrow morning outside various schools. They will doing some blitz operations to ensure on some roads leading into heavily dense schools where there is learners that travel via these public transport vehicles, to actually ensure compliance in that regard. We will always remember what happened last year, where we had that terrible accident with learners involved in a bakkie, and we will forever remember them. And I think that has put a lot of people, their concerns are real when it comes to scholar transport, with parents arranging it with private operators.